Good late afternoon, everybody. Happy that you could attend today's session. Jamie Smith and myself are happy to talk about business acceleration through IT to the MassBio member community. A little bit of how we're going to present today. We want to give MassBio Edge members of all communities the idea of what to look for, what you want to take into consideration, and ultimately, what's the ROI on topics such as cloud migration, modern workplace, and innovation. So we have a few slides put together today. We will take some questions at the end. And ultimately, we'd love to get going and introduce who our speakers are today, talk a little bit about who ECI is in terms of the preferred partner for the MassBio member community, and then we'll get right into the content. So we need to, next slide, please. So today's presenters, Jamie Smith, Vice President of Partnerships and Business Development, been with ECI a number of years, very, very technical, but also very entrepreneurial in terms of how to speak with firms in their best interest when it comes to IT. Jamie will be doing the heart of the conversation today when it comes to the three topics we're going to cover. And then myself as the partnership manager, I encourage conversation with members. I'd love to have talks about how infrastructure can help firms. I am Boston-based and local, so happy to come in and sit down with anybody. And we will be your two presenters on the ECI side today. Next slide, please. Without taking up too much time, I just want to give a quick overview of who is ECI. So 25 years in the IT service business, based and headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. A long, long time ago, we decided that there was a need for outsourced IT support, and our model has grown since. But one thing to remember is that maybe our model has grown, but the common size of our client, the headcount, and the vision of how we work with them has not. So when we applied to become a partner of MassBio, while we do have clients all over the globe, we have the ability to help clients, whether you're 2 people or 200 people. We can help you put in models that scale when it comes to IT and make sure that your technology needs really model your operational costs. We're 900 employees big from a global standpoint, but we're really heavy on the technical side. We have over 600 people that can help and assist on the technical implementation and support of our clients' infrastructures. And we're proud partners of the MassBio and community and how they've expanded through BioCT, SC Bio, and through the EDGE program. One of the perks as a MassBio partner that we're able to offer is a 20% discount on our base list cost. And so we're happy to chat with clients about models that they can put in place. What are you doing today that's working? And how can you change that to prepare for the future? Next slide, please. I think the key to really talk about is our support model. We have 5 different ways that you can contact us when clients are in need of assistance, whether it's through our portal that every client has access to, the phone, the email, the text, and the chat. Our ticketing system is very automated. You get an immediate response. Things are tiered and escalated based on the severity of the issue right away, and you have full transparency into who has your ticket, what's going on, and we communicate back and forth via utilizing ServiceNow, which is a platform that can give it, like I said, visibility and accessibility into the item. Additionally, remote support and on-site support. Because we are Boston-based, we do travel across Massachusetts and also to the other entities that are part of the MassBio community. We have feet on the ground in every location. We can send techs on site. We can even send and set up on-site support contracts where we plan to have IT support on site on certain days that works for you. So quickly, just wanted to give you guys an overview of our support model. And let's go to the next slide and the last slide about ECI before we get into the content. Oh, there was one slide that was left off. From a support model, one thing that we do cover is we give 3 points of contact. You have an account manager who can help you with your day-to-day items, a service manager that can help you with your service issues, and also a technical account manager, your virtual CTO. So one thing in addition to our support model that I covered, 3 points of contact as a client to help you with all areas of your business. So enough about ECI. Let's get into the heart and soul of this conversation. Let's start with cloud migration, what it is, what to look for, how we can help, and I'll hand it over to Jamie Smith.
Thanks, Matt. I think it's important to remember we're kind of looking at business acceleration through IT. IT's changed a lot in the last, I'd say 5 years, but more significantly in the last 2. We don't have many conversations around IT that aren't cloud services. Now, it's easy to see why. If we go to the next slide, you know, the need has really kind of intensified in the last 2 years with the way that people work. Migrating to the cloud is accompanied by an array of kind of hopes and fears, right? The cloud promises the flexibility, scalability, and increased efficiency. You know, life sciences firms can shrink those data center footprints down and support the needs of their users better by being in the cloud. And I think that's kind of the thing that we see the most is if people have an idea, if they have a thesis that they want to, you know, bring into maybe a new company or kind of start a new venture. Previously, when it was kind of more traditional data centers that a life science firm might have, and you know, a lot of data in a data center, a lot of compute power, getting the budget together to, you know, put together the idea and put together the constructs of the firm, get your financing and then launching was a long endeavor. It was very painstaking to get those investments. Whereas now, because we have these cloud options that are open to everybody, those that are migrating onto it and those that are starting there, it does open up a whole plethora of different, you know, possibilities, quite frankly. And we've called out a few things here that kind of that help us to understand the urgency, because the first thing that happened 2 years ago was the changing of the office landscape. Like this whole working from home or hybrid work environment. I mean, yes, it was around, but it wasn't adopted by everybody. It was more for kind of disaster recovery or, you know, fault tolerance than it was maybe, you know, the natural way of working. I know that in Boston, the communities are often kind of in the office together, and there's a lot of that happens. But having the ability to still work, you know, from anywhere on the occasional day, or you know, for longer periods is really important. And so the office landscape has changed. It's definitely a lot more dynamic. And I think the digital first experiences, the modernization of applications is very real as well, because a lot of those, you know, a lot of those users that are working from home or in a hybrid sense, the user experience is a word that it's quite new. It isn't something that's been around forever, but it's really important these days that you try and understand the impact to the user, to the frontline workers. And I think having these kind of digital first experiences is really important to be able to use them. And it's part and parcel of the cloud makeup. Like I think the user experience of working with a cloud provider is really important. So it's important for us that when we design our solutions as well, that we're thinking about the users and how they're going to use it, how they're going to interact, and how they're going to adopt it. Because now, you know, the ability to do that, to sign up for a cloud-based SaaS platform, you can do tomorrow. I mean, look at Zoom. We're talking to you on Zoom. You're taking that in the back end to LinkedIn and to different places, but it's very easy for us to talk to everybody in one media and get it through to another because of the way that the web kind of interconnects and acts. And that's really important to think about that experience and how it's delivered. And the anecdotal thing with that is the access and securing it and making it still compliant, because the cloud is available to everybody, and there is a lot of links and there's a lot of ways to share and use information. It's important that we understand how that is secured and how you keep access to that data secure. You know, for some of the regulated entities that we work with, and some of you all kind of joining us today, will know that data is really important, not just because of, you know, what you have to secure from a kind of data custody standpoint, but also intellectual property. if you're working in environments where the company's data is really your secret source, or it's your intellectual property, making sure that that is secure is really, really important. Which kind of comes onto resiliency and making sure that, again, if there's any issues with accessing some of those systems, we've got them geolocated in different places. And again, going back to the cloud, that's made a lot easier with some of the platform technologies that are there. And lastly, cloud migration for us and moving on to a cloud is definitely keeping up to the competition, making sure that you can do and move as fast as everybody else does. And we've seen that recently in the last kind of few months when we're thinking about things like OpenAI and ChatGPT, which obviously, it did seem a few years ago that AI was in a very distant future and we wouldn't be utilizing it as quick. Maybe it's our children that might kind of benefit from that. But you can see now baked into Office 365, you've got the ability to use ChatGPT and some of the features that are coming in the next couple of months to Microsoft Office 365 using Copilot. It's very real now that you can have a meeting, as long as you're very kind of verbose in what you're talking about in the meeting, it will take notes from you and create a document from those notes. And that's just mind-blowing to think that, 3 years ago, everybody was just using kind of Word and, in their own little kind of computer. That was it. Whereas, 3 years later, we're off on a huge sprint towards, AI and heavy adoption. Next slide, please. So where do we sit in all this? Now, yes, you can just go out and adopt some of these SaaS solutions and some of these kind of modern work environments yourself relatively easily. But what do you get from an MSP that you don't get yourself? One of the biggest topics that I always kind of talk about is the public cloud being the most secure and least secure platform that you can think of. Inherently, it's secure. It's built to ISO 27001 standards. SOC 2 audits happen all the time on cloud infrastructures. But unless you have the right buttons and the right settings in place within the portal, that access can be blown wide open to outside factors. And I think it's important that when you have a relationship with a third party like ECI, that we're making sure that third party risk we help you to mitigate that. We help you to understand, what you have to enforce within these platforms to make them secure. And that starts with, the flexible cloud architecture, how you design the solution, where your users are going to be, and going back to the user experience again, like where your users are going to access from, what they're going to access, how much data they need to access, and making sure that we create that kind of blueprint for the architecture, thinking about all of those things in one spot. Because again, regulatory and compliance factors are huge, certainly within life sciences, certainly within venture capitalists, and having that intellectual property kind of locked down so that if you have some staff that are kind of integral to your business in that early stage, a lot of that information could leave with them if you don't secure all of these kind of compliance management portals in the right fashion. And that kind of leads into cybersecurity. Because again, some of these businesses that you're operating are quite fruitful for a cyber attacker if they can get in and steal some information and understand what it is you're up to. So those kind of first two things are really important to set the company's operation in the right place. And then once you have that, just making sure those those manageable parts of the IT estate are there. So your backups, your IT operations policy, the DR. It's really important to have all those things kind of checked in. And the last one as well, from an MSP perspective, we're here for you. You need to make sure that you have that ability to get help when you need it. If you're coming from a bigger organization into a smaller one or a startup, then it's important that you have access to to support that's there when you need it, and not kind of log a ticket and then someone gets back to you at the end of next week at some point. And if you're used to having an internal IT team, you're really going to miss that if you don't have that ability to call upon people when you need them. Next slide, please. So how do you create your path to reliable, secure, and transformative cloud? The first thing for me is always your strategy. Now, Matt said earlier that I was a bit of a technologist back in the day, and I was, but I think I always defined the clients that I work with, or when I worked in-house as a head of infrastructure, strategy is always really important to me. Making sure that you understand where it is you are and where you want to go to, and the steps that are in place to get you there, because you can't do it all at once. You know, inevitably, when you're looking at your IT management, or if you're looking at your business, there's going to be lots of different priorities. So it's about picking the right priorities for the time and making sure that you get some sense of the business impact around taking these actions, because a lot of things that you'll do, when you define your strategy, will be kind of nice to haves, and the ones that are necessities are always going to fall back to me, the ones that are going to hurt your business and hurt your operation. So defining that strategy, and we've got here as well, aligning stakeholders. It's really important that you get an internal stakeholder for you to champion the ideas and what it's going to get and what the business outcome is going to be. And I'm always thinking about business outcome first, like how's it going to help the business? How's it going to help generate alpha? How's it going to give us something that's important? And again, going back to what I said on the first couple of slides around user experience, these are things that we have to kind of think about and define when you're thinking about the strategy and your approach, because they kind of go hand in hand. Once you've got the strategy, how you're going to get there, put it into some kind of logical order. Now we've got the 5 R's in here: retire, retain, replace, refactor, replatform. That's really important when we're talking about the cloud migration. So for firms that have already got an IT estate set up, thinking about how you're going to move it into the cloud, you're going to think about these 5 factors and you're going to apply that to the landscape. And again, picking your battles. So going back to defining your strategy, look at those kind of 5 R's when you're doing it. It might be that you might have to move, or a really bad terminology, and it might be that you might have to. You might want to think about the things that you can move today versus tomorrow. So if there's an Asian platform that you're currently running on, maybe you just move that, in the same architecture onto a public cloud platform. So you create a VM in Azure, for example, and migrate a server onto that VM. But then in the next iteration, you might think about, actually, can that application sit on an infrastructure as a service platform? Can it sit on a cloud native technology? That's always going to be cheaper. It's always going to be more reliable if you can take it away from a single dependence and put it onto a platform service. So the 5 R's are important, and the migrate and modernize kind of comes into that again after. If you can move something laterally, then once it's done, you can then think about how you're going to modernize that along the way. Where we see this kind of most benefiting companies within the life sciences arena, certainly within the use of data, thinking about how you're going to move from a big kind of monolithic database and maybe re-platform that into an Azure SQL or a Snowflake or somewhere else that better suits that workload, can use the kind of burstable compute and the kind of big sets of data. So yeah, these are the things that I think you should think about when you're migrating to the cloud, and just really kind of consider the business impact as being the biggest driver for me. Next slide, please. So this is kind of how we make our solutions stress-free for our partners, for our clients. I mean, we have a lot of experience. As Matt said at the start, we've been doing this for about 25 years now. Along the way, we have really changed the business to suit the requirements of the industry. So we see a lot of people with that kind of with the platform technologies that maybe sit within Azure or AWS. So I always think about the workload, look at projects we've already kind of completed, and then the next client that kind of wants to do something similar, lessons learned, how we've done it, where's the best place for that technology to sit, and then make sure that we move to the right place, because all the clouds can do a lot of things, but it's finding the right place for the particular workload or application to sit. And because we've had experience across most of the clouds, it's easier for us to do that. And we have that bench of people that have completed projects that we can help and advise on the best way, given kind of what we learn. Understanding today's cloud journey and how you get there, again, that's kind of coming to the same conversation, really, like get to know what it is you're trying to achieve and just think about the best way to get that outcome. And that is a consultancy. I mean, how we deliver those kind of projects is having like a nearshore business analyst to kind of sit with you and understand the roadmap and the strategy, and then putting together the bench of the people that can help deliver that project in a way that you want to. And again, a really big important thing for ECI is that we kind of built our platforms on regulatory compliant technologies, against the industry standards. So we do sit in a few different industries. All of our staff are HIPAA trained in terms of we have to do that on an annual basis, recertify, so that we can take care of that important kind of client and patient data. And then also when it comes to like ISO and SOC, to make sure that, as Matt said, our ServiceNow instance is compliant with all of those personal kind of data and retention ideas that we need to satisfy. So yeah, that's it for cloud migration, and those are some of the things that we do for our clients, and some of the things that we think about when we're taking clients on those journey. Matt, I'm going to let you introduce the next one while I have a little sip of my water.
Sure, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, a buzzword, modern workplace. Again, what we want to do in this section is really talk about what it means, how businesses can use it. A lot of what we see, from a situational standpoint, is firms that are part of the MassBio membership community starting and operating from we did this because we needed to get an infrastructure in place and have a day-to-day ability to function. But now our trial, our drug discovery, our initiative is expanding. Funding came in. We need to get things running operationally up to a greater speed. And so let's go into modern workplace and talk about some things to look for, some challenges companies might have, and then some ways that we can help those out. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Matt. I think one of the key things here, and I think it kind of touched upon it in kind of cloud migration, evolving the hybrid work models, to add a bit more kind of color to that. I think thinking about how people work and where they work from, it does come down to a lot of kind of habitual things as well, like how people traditionally have accessed data and work assets. I think now the expectations are different, and because people can now connect to devices from anywhere or connect into infrastructures from anywhere, the way that the end user compute and the end user experience is a little bit more than just providing them with a PC and a remote access component. I often think about the transition from the office, in terms of screen estate as well. Like if you work in the office with 2 monitors and your laptop, and then you go home and you've got just your laptop, you're never going to be as productive as you could be, given that you're used to kind of working in a set way. So you're going to have a bias to want to kind of be in the office. Now, what we do for a lot of our clients is say, this is how we do it, and this is the models of laptops that we prefer, because they give you access to functionality like a touchscreen maybe that you can use, or I use a Microsoft Surface, so I can have it sitting in front of me as an extra screen with the keyboard kind of swiped away. So just really thinking about what the expectations are and how you're going to link them together. It sounds really kind of silly, because back in the day when I first started working in IT, it would just be a case of they kind of get what they get. It's like this is the same for everybody. But I think now you do have the ability to kind of really think about how people kind of work best and what's best suited for them. And the other big thing for me is connectivity. So connectivity in the office used to be a direct connection maybe to a data center or a kind of big internet pipe. Whereas now, because a lot of your data is going to be somewhere else in the cloud, as well as you're working from different places, a really good strong internet connection is really important to have at home and in the office. And to secure that, you need to have a different type of network connectivity or firewall even in the office. So just looking at actually, this is modern work we're talking about now, but it goes back to the cloud migration thought track, in that the first step is to consider, is your current architecture up for the new challenge? Does it work in this new environment? I think that kind of comes down to when you're thinking about modern work as well. The need for consistent, integrated, and secure working is really kind of talking about the same thing, right? Can we get the data from where it is? If we move this application from potentially like an on-site or a data center into the cloud, is it still going to work in the same way? Are the connections still going to be able to pull the information and work with it? So it's really important that you kind of think about if you're going to re-platform things, how a shift in a re-platform might affect how you use it and where you access it from. And the last one is really, really super important. And I think one of the reasons why we've got to where we have with the use of kind of modern work technologies and modern workplaces is the talent's kind of driving for this. You know, you can't have a new workforce come on board and dictate to people how they should be working if they've used these kind of new cloud technologies elsewhere. They're going to kind of expect it because they know the power of this and how they can use it and how user-friendly those applications and tools might be and how they make your life a lot easier. So if you're going to have and retain, that's an important word as well, retain the best talent, you need to make sure that you're giving them the best experience too. And I think that's really important to kind of buy into. Next slide. Thank you. So I think we kind of spoke about this in the cloud migration piece about how to re-engineer to get your work done and how we do that. I think the first one is talking about not siloing your data. So making sure that across different business units, people can access, what they need to access. So traditionally, we might have worked within kind of spreadsheets and kind of more nucleated data sets. And I think with the use of things like SharePoint and Power BI and reporting, you don't have to work in a spreadsheet anymore yourself. You can publish your data into a portal and make it available to the rest of the organization, which does stop people from doubling up on the data they might have and how they analyze it. So it's just really, making sure that we have access to things that we need by using some of these modern tools. Introducing automation for a manual process is huge as well. So I don't know about everyone on listening in, but certainly there's a lot of things that I used to do on a daily basis that are repetitive. Maybe it's taking some information from one of our CRM systems, popping it into a different place, having to work on the data set and then publishing it to a colleague, probably through email. Whereas now you can have, within an old reference back to Microsoft, because we're a heavily partner with Microsoft and Office 365. But within Power BI, I can use something called Power Automate to take an email that gets sent to me from the CRM, take the data out, put it into a data set for me, and publish it to a Power BI portal, which just happens instantly. I don't have to do anything, and that might take me 10 or 15 minutes a day, a week to get done. And I've just saved myself an hour, maybe a week, in just that very simple way. And these aren't things that you need a degree in computer science or you have to be a data scientist to do it. They're very much kind of low code, kind of click through them and off you go. Even better, there's a lot of things that get published there that are templated that you can just go and pick up. So, introducing automation for manual processes, that's a simple example, but there are many more that you can, find and use. And you don't have to be an expert in IT. These are very much kind of consumable, end user systems that everybody can benefit from with just a little bit of kind of assistance. Delivering the better work-life balance is important as well, because it's important for me when I finish here today that when I jump on the train I can get my emails, go through a couple of spreadsheets, documents, excuse me, work offline, and as soon as I dock my computer back at home, all of that stuff's going to kind of go off and go somewhere else. Or you don't have to, you can detach and just go home. But for me, that's kind of how I finish my day, because it gives me a better work-life balance, knowing that I don't have to stay here and finish all these things off until 6 p.m. at night and then go home and start my evening. I think it's important that if we're going to look at the user experience and how you use things, that it does drive towards a better work-life balance too. That's a bit selfish from me, but that's definitely something that I always kind of enjoy about using these kind of more collaborative modern workplace systems. Last one, and this is important to the business more than it is the end user, but if we don't think about how we can do these things without compromising security, then we're in danger of kind of living within the shadow IT world where people are adopting things and doing things outside the confines of IT, where perhaps you might open yourselves up to some issues when it comes to security and or data integrity. So, to have those kind of hybrid working environments and have that security kind of ready, it's important that we kind of work with our clients to understand how these platforms are going to be used and making sure that they're secure. And that's done by design and not as a kind of a band-aid after. But it is very possible, and I think there's a few things that we do very simply around the kind of tenant level kind of cloud infrastructure to make these things possible. But it may be that you need to look at, the office environment, the home environment. Is the firewall that you bought, 3 years ago going to work for you today? How does the web filtering work? And these things are a part of the onboarding with our clients. Matt, did I miss anything?
think you covered it good. I think there's also one thing you might want to add in terms of mobile device management. Over the last few years, especially, protecting data doesn't just mean protecting it at somebody's workstation or laptop. There's a lot of automated tools that we can put in place very easily that can help in terms of securing the data, but also emphasizes the ability of collaboration, right, over somebody's mobile device. And we've had a lot of conversations with firms on the MassBio Edge side where they're developing ways to make sure that all of these distributed business units, the ways they communicate, are protected and synced, and also, compliant. And, I think that's just one piece of the puzzle, but, it empowers the ability for employees to be connected, for the collaboration to be there, and also the security to be put in place. So mobile device management, I think, is one thing that, while it's not re-engineering how you get work done, it's really a nice addition in terms of creating that environment that is modern workplace.
Good point.
Next
And
slide.
slide, yeah. I think on this slide, it's the same as we kind of spoke about for cloud migration, but the same components still exist for modern workplace. Sorry, the next slide, please, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, again, the experience we have on the cloud platforms allows us to really help our clients understand the kind of need and where it's best suited, and then how to get there. Again, it is about kind of the consultant-led approach, having a business analyst or a business sponsor kind of working with the client, and then kind of getting the bench that they need to fulfill the kind of remit. Again, always align with those industry standards and the regulatory compliance that we need to. Is the order of the day. All right. Last topic is innovation. We can just go on a slide and then quickly onto the next one. But it's important for life sciences firms to modernize, disrupt, and innovation is key to keeping competitive because, again, we talked a lot about the jump that we've had in the last few years around some of the platform services. And the ability to spin up environments quickly. So you can go from kind of like a thesis, an idea, into a full-blown, test kind of environment within days, quite frankly, if you have obviously the right kind of people on board. I'm not suggesting that you should do it that quickly, mind you, but again, with the power of the cloud and the way that these platforms automatically update and kind of add enhancements to them, it's not technology that's stopping you anymore, or budget really. I mean, yes, obviously when you get into kind of real running, you need to have the budget behind you for it, but in order to to scale up, it's very quickly. You can start, and we often do start with firms that are maybe kind of 5-10 people that have an idea that want to kind of take a bit of seed investment and then obviously kind of start to build up the company. And if the momentum's there, they can establish very quickly and grow very quickly into a team of tens, hundreds sometimes. So it's important that we kind of think about the end goal and put in place ways that we can scale and the company can kind of scale with the business. Sorry, the technology can scale with the business. I think the customer preferences is always going to be important because you're going to have things that you want to do. You're going to have preferences on technologies that you've maybe used in other firms that is going to work well for you. And so for us, it's about making sure that we assist our clients with getting those technologies onboarded quickly. There's a lot of technology out there, a lot of kind of deep tech that is fast moving that people want to adopt quickly. And it's about making sure that some of those, and we've spoken in the earlier slides about some of the things that you need to do in terms of the planning stages. It's important that you kind of have them and you think about the strategy behind it. If you've got a good strategy and a good understanding of your kind of data and where it is, adding in some of these technologies to the business that you can use to disrupt and innovate quickly is relatively easy to do once you've got those kind of bases covered off. So we're not here to, and I said this when I used to work in house, like my role in IT wasn't about dictating to the business what we should and shouldn't do. We didn't directly contribute to alpha, to the bottom line of the business, but we helped people. So we were enablers. We were there to make sure that people got what they needed and that they could do their jobs, quite frankly. I don't see ECI as any different with our clients. Like, we're here to make sure that the businesses we support can get access to the things they need and do it safely and securely. And if we can help our clients do that, then it does allow them to modernize and disrupt things a bit quicker. And some of the things that we do on a daily basis around security and data definitely kind of help our clients to do that. When it comes to things like RPA and AI, these are areas where we don't create solutions, we use solutions, and we use one of these cloud platforms, but we have a heavy bias towards platforms with inbuilt RPA and AI, because quite frankly, they're better products. They make things happen a lot easier and quicker for our clients too. So any software solutions that we look to procure, we have these in our due diligence questions. Like, can we use APIs? Have you got any RPA involved? Do you use AI? How is that kind of in your roadmap and in your platform? And that does help us to make sure that we've got technologies that are best of breed for our clients. Matt, have I missed anything here?
No, I think you covered. Okay. Next slide, please.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. There we go. What is holding you back from innovation? I think this is a question for everybody to think about. And these are some of the common things that we see that stop people from innovating. Sometimes it is because of the core technologies in use at the business, but it kind of goes back to some of the previous slides we talked about strategy. And I think having a good strategy, having a good stakeholder within the business that aligns to your IT roadmap and your strategy will allow you to get some of these things through a little bit quicker. If you thought about the different cloud technologies, access, to those clouds, how you're going to secure the data in those clouds. If there's another platform you want to migrate to, or you want to utilize, not migrate to, if there's an expansion to a different cloud, then as long as you're kind of using the same rationale, the same questions to run some due diligence within that cloud platform, you should have a good idea of whether you can use it or not. So by getting your business prepared, you can access a lot more of these technologies that are out there quickly. If you have the fundamentals in place, the questions will be a lot shorter. I think when it comes to accessing traditional infrastructure, and there is an element of physical infrastructure within the life sciences, some of the lab environments and things like that. A lot of these will have the ability to utilize on the back end some of those virtual technologies too. So it's important to look at how they link and how that digital infrastructure can use components of both the physical, but then back onto one of those kind of cloud platforms where you can make use of some of the data, some of the AI that's in there. And we have some great partners, some great value-added resellers and other partners that assist with that. Again, it's important that we understand the industry and ask them the right questions to know that it's secure for your business if they're going to be utilizing some of that data in a different cloud. And the third one, establishing a culture of innovation, is really important. I think if you're doing the first two things, you're going to have that already. If you're listening to your users and considering, the modern workplace and considering, how best your users are going to operate, you've got to have a little bit more of a culture around innovation and how to facilitate that, and it be an open forum and kind of ideas and how you use it. Not always the case, because sometimes you don't want people to be dictating exactly how you're going to use everything, because then you do have that potential for the shadow IT where they're using systems you maybe don't know about and therefore can't secure and therefore can't, ensure that the cyber and the data protection is kind of covered and extended to that new cloud. So I think if you've got like an open forum for idea and developments, then your culture is going to be good enough to survive, people that want to go out and get things, bring things in today, as opposed to those that are going to buy into the process of how you secure it and how you run your IT. And then lastly, making sure you've got the skills and the talent to drive that innovation, which is kind of linked to the third point, but still worth kind of calling out. You need to have, I guess, the talent and the ability to drive that innovation. And that's something that we see, a lot of firms having chief data scientists, for example, that sit on staff that liaise with us, where they're driving the ideas and the innovation. We're helping maybe with some of the kind of DevOps and the kind of day-to-day data management side of the fence. So, we do have a great deal of clients that have got really good talent in-house, and we don't try and step on any toes or dictate anything there. We just make sure that the operational elements that can be outsourced, we do, leaving them to really kind of drive the innovation. Next slide. Not too many more, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us on this. How you unlock the innovation, how you deploy it. Again, it comes back into the kind of strategy, really. But as I spoke about right at the start, the kind of lower upfront cost to the IT investment means that you can test things out a little bit easier. You can go on like a pay-as-you-go model to start with, test out the innovation, test out the technology, and then if it does work, you can then look to deploy a more of a robust kind of costing around it. And we can help with that. Like when it comes to AWS and Azure, we often help with the cost management, putting some guardrails around the reporting so when you're at a particular spend, etc. So that's something you need to kind of think about. I think it does flow into that, how quickly you can prototype and develop with these platforms. This is a really kind of strong benefit to utilizing cloud services. Removing IT complexity, I think this is something that we talk about a lot, and it is kind of innovation. But again, it goes back to that strategy and making sure that if you are going to kind of remove yourself of the legacy data center and some of the infrastructure, just knowing where it's going to be and how you're going to access it. Because if you tell your stakeholders and your users that you're going to migrate to a new shiny new platform, when they get there, if it doesn't work as kind of quick and as snappy, or as if they don't feel that it's as good as the platform you've migrated from, you're going to lose a lot of trust, and you're going to lose a lot of kudos with the people that you kind of need on side as well. So again, cloud models do remove the IT complexity. They do allow you to run more of an economical OpEx kind of model. But it's important that you take into account the user experience too, and make sure that they see the benefit and move into a more forward-thinking model. Data management and consolidation is huge as well for us. Empowering that single view across the business is important, because one of the things we see a lot when it comes to migrations and moving into the cloud is a duplication of data. People that have data that they don't really know what it's doing. That's the biggest thing for me is, we need to migrate this 3 terabyte database into a cloud. Why? Because we need to keep the data for, I don't know how long we need to keep it for. And people just have a habit of taking things with them just because they don't really know what it's doing. So really getting into a project of understanding your data, where it is, what it's doing for you, why you have to keep it, if you have to keep it before you move it into the cloud, is really important to make it kind of truly efficient. Matt, anything I've missed on that one?
I think you covered all of it. Great job. Next slide, please.
Okay, so how ECI enable workplace transformation and innovation. Again, we talked about this throughout the last few slides, but securing access to your assets and data is our #1 importance. Making sure that data is safe and secure, that you can access it anywhere. It sounds difficult, but it's really not. Like if we get the fundamentals in place, this stuff is pretty easy, and that's one of the things that we do very well. Actively managing the cloud environment to keep you compliant kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, really, in terms of the compliance elements that we put together and the guardrails we put in there. It does help to lower the barrier to innovation and get new services to the market faster. We kind of covered that really with just having that great IT strategy to make sure that when an innovation comes along, because you've already thought about the questions you're going to have, it's going to become easier to do. And we did mention Microsoft here, I think the first time in the whole deck, but it is an important partner for us and a partner we do a lot of work with. It does improve your ability to collaborate with the PowerPoint, the SharePoint, the Excel and the Word documents all now being on the cloud. It's very easy for multiple people to work on documents and publish it, send links around and access it. And finally, better cost controls. This is really important to a lot of people and to us to make sure. I think sometimes it's not about reducing budget, but it's about maximizing what you're doing with it. Your IT spend, sometimes you don't want it to get too low because you might need it. And obviously going back to a CFO or an investor and asking them for more budget for something is difficult. So I like to think about cost controls as making sure that you are maximizing what you're doing with the budget, because often that's a factor. Limited budget, limited resource means you need to really think about how to maximize the use of what you have. And that certainly comes down to controlling your costs so that you can use it in other places if you need to. But these are really important for us when it talks about how we transform our clients. Next slide is the one that we came back to a couple of times previously, but again, for us, the partnership is really about understanding the client needs and making sure that you use our experience and get our clients, get them there safely. Again, consulting them on the roadmap and strategy for all of these points that we discussed today, really important to us. Matt, I'm going to let you take the last slide.
Yeah, next slide, please. So we do have the ability, if anybody has any questions, to put them in the chat. Also, on the ECI profile, on the MassBio website, MassBio Edge website, my contact information is there, as well as these slides. So if there are questions afterwards, please reach out. I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with anybody about anything we've spoken about or anything around IT or cybersecurity. But I wanted to go over how ECI has helped a MassBio member recently. And I think that you take a look at the concept here of the phases and our approach, because it kind of goes along the lines of what we've discussed here. Let's take a peek at what was currently in place operationally, and let's migrate. Let's figure out how can you optimize, how can you automate and realign your strategy around IT to better fit your business model on how you want to move forward. So we had a firm that came to us based in Boston, and you can kind of see what they were into in terms of their mission and their core values. They were at the point where they were just seeded by a VC and were ready to explode from a headcount perspective. They figured out that how they had been running operations that involved IT were piecemealed together. People were bringing in their own computers. People had their own phones. People were, saving things on their own computer, not on shared network drives. And they needed to make sure that they were poised to advance correctly. And so we phased one and we phased two this, where we didn't come in and pitch solution. We said, let's take a block of hours and come in and assess your environment. Let's give you a roadmap and do interviews with folks. Talk about how are you operational, how are you operationally set day one right now? Who has access to certain documents? How are you sharing documents? What are people using and how are you keeping track of that inventory? So through phase one, we did an infrastructure and assessment. We gave them the results, and then we also offered remediation recommendations that were lined up with best practice in the industry. Now, we didn't come in and say, we need to do this for you. We need to do this for you. We basically said, here's how you need to function if you want to be operationally efficient down the road. And we also came back and said, okay, here is, say, 50 things that we recommend you do. Here's the top 10 you might want to focus on sooner rather than later. But here's the immediate 3 that maybe we could take a look at now. So we roadmapped it. Um, and we did that over the phase one block of hours. Then, after a few conversations and the assessment results started moving forward, we came in and we said, okay, let's take a look at how we could migrate you to a cloud infrastructure. How can we get you lined up from a cybersecurity standpoint to make sure that um, all the different areas that involve cyber are protected? Because cybersecurity's definition has changed a lot, right? You have things you need to prevent that aren't attacking your network or your end users, but are out there. How can you preemptively block those? How can you train your users? How can you make sure your infrastructure is secure? And then how do you react to any potential threats? So along with the cloud solution, we implemented a layer of cybersecurity across the board, and we gave them tools and helped implement tools so they could share information, share documents, and share access. It was one of those concepts of adapting to new technology and everybody being on board. And at the end of the day, the end result was increased efficiency in operation and um, better spend on their IT budget moving forward. The ROI that that client received was definitely topped off by the MassBio discount that ECI offers. Right off the bat, 20% off of what we were scoping got knocked out, which was great for the client, beneficial for down the road. It allowed them to do a little bit more than they were thinking day one, which is fantastic. They've expanded quickly and they've been able to scale on a budget. So they knew if we were going to open up a second office and add this many users, they had a per person headcount spend already for the technology. So they were able to plan, budget, and implement pretty seamlessly cost of operation around IT for added users and for that second location. And then you figure out the takeaways that are constant after the migration. It's that support model. Now they didn't have one person they needed to go to and ask for questions who maybe had to go to 4 or 5 different companies to get support from this software service or this entity, right? They can concentrate their focus with our account team, with our support team, open up tickets and let ECI manage the vendors that they utilize outside of the cloud and cyber infrastructure that are part of their technology stack. So at the end of the day, operational efficiency, scalability, and a larger concentration on a normalcy that allows their IT to function, but also scale at a predictable rate is something that we help put in place. And we've seen by the expansion of this client in terms of headcount over the last year or so, things are predictable. And that really makes things easy in terms of if they grow, if they need to bring people on board, and when their research takes off, they're able to do it, and IT is not a thought around the process. There's no hangups. So that's a little bit about a case study. Again, Jamie, anything you wanted to add as we wrap up? I don't see any questions coming in right now, but again, happy to address those. But any final comments?
No, I'm glad that we live in the era that we do when it comes to kind of compute and technology, because it is a lot easier today than it was, you know, 5 years ago. So we're in a great position of understanding, you know, the industry that we operate in here with MassBio, and also the capabilities of the you know the services that exist today. So I think we're a good fit for a lot of people, can help out you know, tremendously when it comes to how to utilize kind of IT to its full effect with a growing firm. I look forward to talking to people with any questions that might come up. You know where we are in the member directory if you need us.
Well, thanks everybody for your time. I appreciate you guys attending and look forward to talking to you in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.